I think we'll go ahead and begin.
Okay.
That's okay.
All right.
Today we're on chapter 9, and the title of chapter 9 is Honor Marriage. The title of chapter 9 should have been Don't Get Divorced.
That is an interesting question in the Bible.
I have a number of things I'm going to talk about today besides, well, to supplement what Dr. Bolton has in his book here. And I just wanted to give you a list of the resources that I use so that you don't think I made anything this up. So we'll use the textbook, obviously. I'm going to share a reading here in a few moments from a journalist whose name is Diane DePiro Rodeo, and she has written and researched about the status of women in the Bible times. Then there is some information that I borrowed from a book called The Marginal Jew, which is written by Father John Meyer. He's a Catholic priest, and it's a book about the historical Jesus, trying to look for the historical Jesus rather than just what the Bible says. Then I have some information from a group of scholars known as the Bible Project Scholarship Team. I have a couple of things from the Mishnah, which is the commentary on the Torah. And then probably foremost is Dr. T.J. Ray. She is a recognized expert on women in the Bible. She is Professor Emeritus or Emerita of Religious and Theological Studies at Salvi Regina University in Newport, Rhode Island. That's a very liberal Catholic university, I think. Is that her picture? What's that?
Is that her picture?
That's her picture, yeah. She may be older than that since she's retired. I think a lot of people keep their younger pictures.
Yeah.
I know I would.
I would, exactly.
So those are my resources for today. And I'm going to start off with this reading. This is from the journalist Diane DePiro Rodeo, and the title of it is What Was Life Like for Women During Jesus' Time? Picture it, Nazareth.
Hand on backwards.
What's that?
Wait, I know we're all kind of staring at that hand, yeah. Not sure what's going on there.
It's kind of strange. Maybe it's like a mitt for handling hot pots or something.
I don't know.
I'm talking about the one trying to turn the stove on.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. So here's the reading. Picture it, Nazareth in 1 AD. It's hot and dry, and you're wearing a flowing tunic that covers your ankles. In the large pockets of the apron over your tunic, you carry food from the field or the market. You open the door to your 2-room home, and you set the food on a wooden table. You're about to start grinding grain for bread when you realize that you forgot to stop at the well. You need to do that before it gets too late, so back out you go, carrying your bucket with one hand while mopping sweat from your brow with the other. It's not so awful, though, because you meet up with some of the other women at the well, and you talk about the goings-on around town. You return home, pour the water into the jugs, and place fresh fruit in bowls. Now you go back and take care of your few sheep or goats. You do some weaving, some sweeping, some cooking over a hot fire. You help your 4 children clean up and get ready for dinner, and you greet your husband when he comes back from the fishing boat. You serve dinner, clean up, take care of the animals, sweep the floors again, put the children to bed, say your prayers, and blow out the light. Tomorrow, you're going to do this all over again. Oh, and you're only 19 years old.
Oh, my God.
Good for children.
So the author says women who lived around the time of Jesus married young, but they were thrust into duties that today make them seem much older. Their husbands relied on them to take care of everything related to the house. Home ownership typically passed from father to son, but it was the woman of the house who held everything together.
Wow.
So that.
And you wonder why they died young.
Exactly. And this is, I'm sorry it's not perfectly clear. I blew this up from a smaller picture, but this is a recreation of what a house would have looked like in Jesus' time. She said two rooms, and the rooms are stacked on top of each other. You have to get to the upper room on the ladders. You can see down there in the lower right-hand corner, that's where the pen for the sheep. Probably the left and middle is the cooking area and the area where she keeps her water and so forth. So not a big area to take care of, but certainly all that climbing up and down the ladders all day long would be.
So they prepare everything down on the first level and go
I'm
and
just
live on
guessing.
the second?
The second level to me looks like that might be the sleeping quarters up there.
Yeah.
And there may even be a third level. There's another ladder going up in the back there.
Well, I
so
was
maybe
wondering
kind
if
of
that went up to the roof.
or maybe to the roof.
The
Yeah,
roof,
that's
yeah.
probably what it
What
is.
is this?
Yeah, you're
But this
probably
is
right.
a house in Jesus' time.
Yeah, they would have slept on the roof if it hadn't been hot.
Anyway, this is what I just read if you want.
Oh, sorry.
Get it. All right, so our verse today is from the 5th chapter of Matthew in the Sermon on the Mount, verse 31 and 32. It says, "It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery." So what's your initial take on this statement?
It messed us up as a society for a long time.
You think that's what
I think it messed up our society
messed
for a
up
very
our
long
society
time.
for a long time? Do you want to elaborate on that?
All right. I don't think my 90-year-old father would mind. I think I've told you guys the story before that he was divorced when my mom married him. And her parents were so angry, they didn't come to the wedding because of that.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at it thinking, well, it doesn't mean when a man divorces, that thing apparently happens to the man.
Oh, no, it never does.
Yeah. But our community, our RLDS world, our Christian world in the 60s was, if you get divorced, then you become sexually immoral. That was his viewpoint.
Well, that
So
was America.
I know,
Yeah,
but it was in our backyard. So
yeah.
So
It was
the
definitely
comment
right.
you made is referring to the fact that it's causing the woman to commit adultery
Ah.
if she gets remarried, I guess.
Right.
yeah,
Why is it
What-
always on
what
the woman's
questions?
shoulders?
What's that?
The crime or the sin seems to always,
So what would you ask?
On the
What would
woman's.
you want to say to Jesus or ask Jesus about
I would
this?
raspberry him.
Can you explain yourself?
yeah. I was gonna say, what are you talking about?
maybe that was it was needed for the time of that time.
Okay.
And things change. I can't imagine Jerry Rushfelt being an adulterer with me.
No, you're the adulterer because he married you.
Oh, I'm, oops.
Sorry.
Oh.
Thank goodness.
Oh.
I was worried about.
I was worried about Jerry.
Oh no, still
So-
on you.
So
Was he
what's
divorced?
the criteria?
He was a widow.
He was a
Oh,
widow.
okay, you're
Yeah,
divorced, yeah.
I'm the adulterer
Okay.
in that
What's the
situation.
criterion here that
Oh.
Jesus gives for a legitimate divorce? There's one thing that he says is,
Yeah,
is apparently-
Unchastity.
sexual immorality.
Yeah, so if there's some bad behaviors going on in the background there. So why do you think he put it on the woman here more so than on the man, or at least that's the way it sounds?
Well, because according to Jewish law at the time, she had no power. She had no say when he decided to set her aside. And so she was an innocent victim.
So then she became isolated
Yeah.
after that, which was even more punishment, maybe?
Makes it worse.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like he's blaming the wrong person, but that's just
Yeah.
my opinion.
Well, yeah.
This is the thing that Jesus supposedly said. I'm trying to go with either what Debbie says at the sign of the times, or maybe the scriptures got it wrong. But it's like I don't see him judgmental like this anywhere else.
Yeah,
So
it does seem a little bit odd.
yeah,
A little out of character,
it's
maybe.
really off of my vision of who Jesus
Well,
is.
I see him saying this to the man. You are causing this.
Well,
Yeah,
but that's not fair either.
well,
But adultery is a punishable sin, and
Yeah.
even if she's being caused or coerced into adultery, that kind of makes her culpable, I think, in the way I'm interpreting this.
It's really weird language because it says But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife except on the ground of sexual immorality. So she's being sexually immoral.
Yeah, so if she's
Mm.
being sexually immoral, it's okay to divorce her.
But
What he's saying.
that's when she actually is committing
But if he
adultery.
just, the husband just says, I'm tired of you and, we're incompatible or whatever, the legal term is, that would be wrong. That's what Jesus is saying.
A lot of times it was if the wife didn't have a baby,
Okay, it could be for not being able to produce children. And in those days, that was.
even if it was his fault.
Well, we're going to keep talking about this, but I'm just
Yeah,
bringing this up to show you that
last week was lust, and this week.
this is a little bit, this is a confusing scripture for many people. It is for me. And
Yeah. I don't want to.
now the thing that's interesting is, and this is what Jane's going to be teaching about next week, so I'm not going to go into it other than to show you what the very next verse is.
Okay.
Okay? And the very next verse,
Man.
sorry,
Oh, no,
I guess
he's
I was
not,
coming.
no, okay.
Is again, you have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, you shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows that you have made to the Lord. And I only put that in there because to me, that's a tie-in.
Mm.
We're going to talk about a lot of other things next week in that, in that coming chapter. But I think the fact that Jesus, or at least the writer, attributes to Jesus saying it in that order, to me is, suggesting
Vow, yeah.
what Jesus thinks is the important part of marriage is the vow. It's the fact that you said you're going to be committed to a person, right? So that was just for fun. Okay, Jane, here's Matthew 19, same book, but Jesus talking now to some Pharisees. And some Pharisees came to him, and to test him, they asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any cause? And he answered, have you not read that the one who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And so they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, whatever God has joined together, let no one separate. So what's he talking about here? This is the story of Adam and Eve, right? Since the very beginning in the garden. And they said to him, why then did Moses command us to give a certificate of dismissal and to divorce her? And he said to them, it was because you were so hard-hearted that Moses allowed you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, again, except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery. And he who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Now, who's the blame on?
Oh, good. It's equal now.
Okay.
Okay.
Very
that's the one.
saved.
So
No, you're both
now
adulterers.
Yeah, you're both adulterers now.
I know.
now it's on the husband. So why did Jesus change his mind? What's going on here?
How many years later was it written?
Well, I'm just taking them in the order that they show up in Matthew.
Right.
He decided to be an equal opportunity.
There you go.
So,
He got to know some women and they were like, okay, dude, this is unfair.
Yeah,
What
there-
about
yeah,
the man?
There you go. He revised his rule.
okay, so we're saying Jesus has matured now a little bit.
That's what I meant.
Listening to those around him.
But I
Mary and
meant
Martha,
It
to
didn't come
say.
out right the first
Yeah.
time.
Mary and Martha pulled him aside and said, look, Jesus.
Okay, that's.
Why is it all artful?
So why do you think, just out of curiosity, why does Jesus begin by talking about the Garden of Eden and then the law of Moses? The law of Moses is like less than what God gave you at the beginning. So it's a comparison here. It's a comparison to, in the Old Testament times, what they believed the ideal relationship would be like. Two people created by God, sinless, not doing anything bad until the serpent showed up, right?
Mhm.
And then along comes, sin and bad behaviors, and now Moses has got to fix that mess up by creating these laws, right? Allow an out for a man who wants to divorce his wife.
Because he probably got annoyed at all the men going, come on, I got to get rid of her.
Yeah. So he's kind of saying, this is not God. The law, what you guys are talking about, was not God's perfect will. God's perfect will was much better in the beginning, and you guys are substituting this because you couldn't behave yourselves.
I never put this with the Adam and Eve story because the Adam and Eve story doesn't end well. I mean,
Well, this
at
is the
some-
very beginning. This is like the creation, the good part of it.
Before,
but Jesus knew everything, the whole story though.
Yeah, but he's saying before they got kicked out of the garden, why, you had a much better
Oh, because it says at the beginning.
at the beginning, yeah.
Oh, all right.
I just wanted you to see that he's kind of created this
Okay.
parallel between what God ordained, what God wants,
Yeah.
and what
messed it up.
humankind has come up with that sort of makes it less than perfect.
okay, so I'm going to throw this in.
Okay.
So in the story of Adam and Eve, they didn't have anybody else to go to. It was just them.
I had to make it.
Somebody showed up. I don't know how. It's
Coral, you'd made a good rabbi. Starting to ask questions already.
it's like, what?
I understand. There are lots of holes that we could probably punch.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It was that
I couldn't tell
Yeah, who
myself.
did their sons marry?
There was,
Well, my
sisters.
understanding is, if there was only one man and one woman, we should all look alike. We should have the same DNA. So what happened
We're
there?
very inbred.
We could be playing
We're
banjo.
very inbred.
We are.
All right.
Maybe we are.
So that we answered that question, I
All
think.
right.
All right. Just a little data about divorces in the United States, just so you can kind of understand
I was
the
one of
reality
those.
of the situation in our day. These are numbers from last year, but the most recent numbers that they had on total numbers of divorces was from 2023, and that was 672,502 in this country. First-time divorce rate, 33%, and overall the divorce rate is declining a little bit.
Oh, that's
Anybody
good.
know why that is?
common law.
Economy.
People get married.
People are getting married.
Common law habitation,
Yeah.
cohabitation.
And a lot of people are living together before they get married now, and they do get married, go on to get married, but they know each other much better than
I had a friend
if they had.
because
But according to the law, even if they're common law, they actually have to get a real divorce.
Depends on the state.
Well, it
Depends on
depends
the
on and also according to the IRS.
Gotcha.
Well, I think there's a difference between you have to declare that you're in a common law marriage,
Yeah.
as opposed to we're just going to live together for a while and see how it goes,
Yeah.
see if this works out.
IRS is pesky.
Second time divorce is not so good, 60% higher rate. So
That means like a second marriage?
that's the second
Okay.
marriage, yeah.
Interesting.
Same-sex divorces, 1.1%.
Oh.
That's interesting.
Average
interesting.
length of the first marriage is 8.2 years.
Well, I passed that.
Boy, we got them beat.
I'm doing pretty good.
I made it.
I say, we made it
Highest
past
divorce rate is the state of
Almost
Arkansas.
30.
Arkansas.
Lowest divorce rate is the state of Massachusetts.
not to be the stereotype, but is it because they found out that they were married to their uncle or their cousin?
Because I don't know.
Thinking of the intelligence.
I'm not even
that-
gonna try to hazard a guess on that.
Oh,
The percentage of divorces that involve children is 28%, so
Yeah.
that's more than a quarter involve people that,
Yeah.
have to figure out problems with their kids. The most common reasons given for divorce are lack of communication and financial stress. So apparently nobody gets divorced for sexual immorality in this country.
No, because they just agree to have an open marriage and
Yeah.
one person gets
It's
hurt.
because.
So I would say the predominant number of divorces in this country, Jesus would disagree with then.
Oh, yeah.
so that means they're both adulterers.
A lot of times in the case of sexual,
Immorality.
stuff is that one or the other doesn't want to give them a divorce so that they can marry the other one.
Wow.
It's a vengeful thing.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about being female in the time of Jesus. We know pretty much what the Bible
Already
says. We
freaked
have a
us
pretty
out.
good sense of that. But
We have any
what is archaeology and what is actual research about the role of females in biblical times tell us? So the writers of the Bible lived in a patriarchal society. We understand that. They didn't invent the patriarchy. It was just the social umbrella of the time. It was pretty much permeated all of the cultures in the Middle East
Pretty much.
that felt that way.
We have time.
Women did have more equality than the Bible sometimes suggests, and this is based on written artifacts that have been left, contracts and so forth. So it wasn't great, but it wasn't maybe quite as grim as has
They
been
were
made out to
actually
be.
able to sign contracts? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you.
Alrighty.
So women written about in the Bible, to be written about and included in the Bible, you have to be kind of an important person, right?
Okay.
And so they were usually people presented as people who managed to circumvent the supposed to be the strictures of patriarchy to become movers and shakers. So maybe women of a strong personality could overcome some of that.
Okay.
And some of the examples, Deborah was a judge in Old Testament times and also a military leader. Bathsheba was a queen who ruled in David's absence when he was off making war with somebody. We know about the prophetess Anna, who worked in the temple. Women were supposed to be restricted in their religious roles, and yet she actually lived and worked inside the temple walls, which was pretty impressive for women. And then Apostle Paul writes about his friend Lydia, who was an owner of a business. She actually had a business and wasn't staying at home taking care of children. Men mostly were the inheritors of the property, but there are archaeological documents that indicate that some women bought and sold land and had been inheritors.
Proverbs 31.
What's that say?
That was the honorable woman. She did all the work while all the husbands were sitting outside the gates of the talking. But she bought and sold land, and
that's true. So, but anyway, the archaeology supports that as being sometimes a fact. Again, it probably didn't happen a lot, but it did happen, and so makes us kind of readjust our view of how things might have been in the Old Testament, at least for some people. Life for most women, as we read, was challenging, arduous, and brief. The overwhelming majority of women lived in rural villages in agricultural settings. Fewer lived in scattered urban centers such as Jerusalem. Most women married after reaching sexual maturity, so wives were generally about 12 or 13 years old. Men typically waited to get married until they were in their 20s or 30s. And if you look at the average lifespan, that kind of makes sense, that age relationship. Most women didn't live much beyond 30 years, and most men didn't live much beyond 40. So
Childbirth.
longevity-wise, they kind of worked out pretty equal.
Water.
Just because the women were so much younger.
Because they died after giving birth to so many kids.
Could be.
Could be.
Marriages were, well, and all that work too, I can imagine.
Yeah.
You break down physically pretty fast.
Well, and you're not excused work while you're pregnant, so.
yeah,
No. And then they turn around and marry somebody else.
Yeah, you hit us with that reading, I was imagining this poor woman, and then at the end of his reading, he goes, and she's 19.
Yeah,
I was at a heart attack,
So the marriages were brokered between the family and the groom. The women had little say in the selection of their husband. So these would be what we call an arranged marriage. There are still some cultures and countries that do that. I had a student from India who was his wife and he were matched up by the parents. And he
My
had to go back.
grandfather and grandmother on my mom's side, on her parents, met each other on their wedding day.
Yeah, it was interesting. He had to fly back to India to get married and then bring her back here. But she was a person who had been raised in a very wealthy family, and so she was accustomed to having servants and not having to cook, so she couldn't do anything. And had a child within, the first year, and that marriage ended very quickly. She couldn't clean, she couldn't cook, she couldn't take care of the kid.
She didn't want to.
Just didn't want to.
well, no, why would
And
she?
so-
She had servants.
Yeah, you'd think that they would send some with her, but.
Paul,
Yes.
I would like to go back to the average lifespan and just say, I think those those are average lifespan, and the high child mortality rate brings the average down
Yeah, no doubt.
from that.
Yeah, no doubt. I don't know how soon you came in on the discussion, but some of the information that I'm using today was from a woman professor who is an expert in all of these things having to do with women in biblical times. So this is her information. It's not, it's not mine, but I agree with what you're saying. I understand that. But even so, 30 to 40 is pretty young any way that you look at it. So the
For
women's
example, though, Mary, Jesus' mother, was alive and he was 30 years old.
Yeah,
Good point.
good
All
point.
right.
But
She
they
might have
were
been
even married.
she might have been on the other end of the curve then, Dennis. I mean, she was one of
Maybe so.
maybe the rare individuals who actually lived longer than normal. But I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I absolutely understand that has an impact on.
Well, she was probably 15 when she had him.
What's that?
She was probably 15 or so.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
young,
That's
yeah.
so she might have been
Very young.
45 or something, 46. So the woman's role in the home was parenting and domestic chores, taking care of the children, cooking, cleaning, mending, tending fires, and seeing to the livestock. Children usually started their chores very early in life, and by the time the boys were 5 years old, they were out working in the fields with the men. So you didn't really have much of a childhood in those days.
All hands banner.
And you're lucky if you had an education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most didn't. Most were
I
illiterate.
can literally lay over the frontier of Iowa when our early church was there on like all of that.
Yeah.
Some things
All
have
right.
changed.
A little bit more about the historical record. Although the Old Testament says that only men could initiate a divorce, there have been documents retrieved that go back to 400 years before Jesus that do indicate some women were able to initiate a divorce and retain their property. These were special provisions that were enforced when abuse was evident.
We also know where poisons are.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe a judge
I'm
had
really
to.
glad whoever your
Fair.
source is found these documents.
Yeah,
That changes things a little bit.
a little bit. Yeah. We don't know anything about how often people divorced in 30 CE, which would have been the time that Jesus lived. Wealthy people were more likely to divorce. If a man left his wife, the law required that the husband had to return the dowry and any money that the father had paid to him to take her off of his hands. And so the poorer men likely would not have been able to afford a divorce. They wouldn't have to give everything back. So the thinking is that among the poorer class, the divorces may have not been terribly common.
Well, and I imagine that if they broke it down, the more poor group probably lost women to childbirth and other things earlier than the rich people did, so that they were alive, to get a divorce.
The women had few options for obtaining a divorce, but there are some reasons, and one reason that a woman could sue for divorce is depending on her husband's occupation. So if he was a copper smelter, which was a very dangerous job because they inhaled a lot of smokes and stuff, and so the men usually got sick and were not able to work and support the women, she could get a divorce from a copper smelter. Leather tanners, they smelled bad because they're working with dead animals, and it was considered an unclean profession working with animal skin, so she could get rid of him. Or the manure collector.
This is the Jewish law at the time? Okay.
So
It just smells
I like
so
it.
bad. I can't stand it.
You stink.
Goodbye.
I thought you guys would get a kick out of that. So here are some famous Bible divorces that took place. We might not think of Abraham and Hagar. She was the servant woman. But some women who were married were slaves to the man. They literally were owned by the men. And so scholars think now that Hagar probably would have, since they procreated together, she would have been one of these slave wives. And then after Sarah sent her away.
Mhm.
So Sarah was the reason for the divorce, for getting rid of the slave wife, but that would have been an early divorce. Moses was married to Zipporah, and there's an implied divorce there because it says in the Old Testament in Exodus that Moses sent Zipporah and his children back to live with her father, who was a priest in Midian, and Zipporah's father told Moses to take her back. And so apparently Moses had to remarry Zipporah. Samson and Delilah were divorced. I don't know too much more about that story. One of David's wives, I think he had about 7, was named Michal. I don't know how you pronounce that. Her father was Saul, the king, and when her relationship with David became strained, I think over Bathsheba, then Saul took her back. So Saul actually made her come back and leave David, and he gave her to another man whose name was Paltiel. But then later he didn't like Paltiel, so he retrieved Michal back and gave her back to David.
Oh, that poor woman.
Joseph almost divorced Mary, if you remember from
Yes.
Yeah.
the New Testament.
He had to.
He was inclined to put her away, was the terminology
Mary.
that they used. And then a very famous divorce that resulted in the beheading of John the Baptist
That's why.
was Herodias divorced her first husband, who was Philip the Tetrarch. There were 3 sons of Herod the Great, and Philip was one of them. She left him and went and married his brother, Herod Antipas. And so
And that happens. in
that-
Arkansas.
You wonder on the Moses one, if he married her before they took off to the desert, if she was an Egyptian woman, then I would see him sending them back because
well, the
She's
fact that her
rebellion.
father was a priest in Midian, though, makes me think that she was a Hebrew.
It was after he left,
Yeah.
when he was,
It was when he was
Exiled.
hiding, kind of
yeah,
hiding out,
exiled.
but before he went back to get the rest of the
Let's see,
Israelites.
what does the movie say?
Was he a Midianite? Wasn't she a Midianite?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it just says he was,
Ten Commandments.
yeah, his name was Jethro, and he was a priest in Midian, was
Yeah.
what it says.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that means they were
was a
Midianites
shepherd.
or something else, but
And was this before or after Moses made the law on divorce?
this was before.
Before.
Yeah,
So it was his experience that colored his law.
thinking a little bit.
All right.
I mean,
Well,
I,
maybe you send her back just to keep her and the family safe.
It doesn't say.
That's
Like
what
said,
I was
this is-
thinking.
Yeah,
That's
I
whole-
was too.
I mean, he had a whole thing battle to do with Egypt.
it
I
seems
think
like to
it's the
me,
way the language is written is that scholars interpret that to mean a divorce. It may have to do with the
Okay.
linguistics. I don't,
Mhm.
because I would not have thought of that either.
yeah, to me, it sounds more like he was like, hey, this is not going to be safe for you and the kids.
Yeah.
Go live with your dad for a while.
Oh my God.
I think in those days when they said he sent her to live with her father, it means he was getting rid of her.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm not the person to ask about
but then it says, and apparently they remarried. Does that mean they remarried other people?
themselves. No,
Each
together.
other.
Yeah.
Dad sent her back.
Together again.
I was like, I'm done with her. You take him
Well,
back.
Jethro made him take her back.
Yeah.
Maybe she was hard to live with. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of
I mean, it does seem like she was kind of a strong-minded
It could have
person.
been, you know.
Well, he
Um,
had been a bigwig and
So let's talk about what the Mishnah says. These are the writings of the rabbis, and the general tone of the writings in the Mishnah are that divorce, while regrettable and painful, may be the normal course of things. Kind of like we look at it today, I think. You know, we don't like it to happen, but sometimes it does. The reasons for divorce that were acceptable were debated. Generally, they centered on sexual misdeeds or shameful acts. The Greek word for that is porneia, where we get pornography.
Interesting.
Rabbi Shammai says a man should divorce his wife only because he has found grounds for it in unchastity. So he towed the line. He would have agreed with Jesus there. Rabbi Hillel says a man may divorce his wife even if she spoiled his dish, since it is said because he has found her indecency of a thing. So bad cook, hit the road, Jack.
Spoiled.
I'm out of here.
Well, why are you saying house of?
Well, so a rabbi had like disciples.
Mhm.
Okay, they would teach, and so this would be their group. This is what their group decided, I
Okay.
guess.
Okay.
And then finally, Rabbi Akiba says, even if he found someone else prettier than she, since it is said, and it shall be if she finds no favor in his eyes. So he finds somebody better looking, okay. Not,
It happens.
So cooking, looks, and unchastity. So what do you guys think? What does it mean to you that Community of Christ and many other churches consider marriage to be a sacrament or a covenant? What do we mean by a sacrament? We use the term a lot. I don't know that I've ever heard anybody actually define it in a class.
It means to make sacred.
Okay, make sacred?
And I think of sacred contract. I always
Yeah.
think of contracts.
Okay.
You know, even like communion is a sacrament, it is our sacred contract with God that we are renewing.
And I would use
Communion.
promise or vow.
Promise, okay.
So the book definition of a sacrament is a religious ceremony or a ritual regarded as imparting divine grace, such as baptism or the Eucharist or communion that we call it. So there's a sort of a transactional agreement between us and God that when we participate in those sacraments, many churches would say what you're receiving in return is the grace of God, the love of God.
Yeah, that's nice.
Now, our church goes a little bit farther. This is from section 158. Look especially to the sacraments to enrich the spiritual life of the body, seek for greater understanding of my purposes in these sacred rites, and prepare to receive a renewed confirmation of the presence of my spirit in your experiences of worship. So I think this was W. Wallace Smith, maybe that in his understanding is now tying sacrament to the presence, not just the grace of God, but actually the presence of God in our midst.
Yeah.
And then section 162, you have already been told to look to the sacraments to enrich the spiritual life of the body. It's not the form of the sacrament that dispenses grace, but it's the divine presence that give life. So now we have both grace and divine presence combined in one statement. And I think to me that captures, this meaning of a sacrament or communion. And we're doing the sacrament today. We're having communion today, which is convenient, right? Any thoughts, questions about that? Any other understandings that you have?
Was Grant?
158 would have had been Wallace B, though.
Wallace B, okay.
No, it was Grant McMurray.
162 was Grant.
158
158 was Wally B then. Yeah, I knew it was before Grant.
It's AI though.
That's an AI.
Oh, it's not.
That's from the center plate.
Oh, okay.
All right, so if marriage is a sacrament and a covenant, why does it need to be regulated by the states and require a license? This is the only sacrament of any church that the states do that. Okay, they don't legislate anything about baptism or ordination, or well, ordination maybe a little bit. You have to like to perform a wedding or something like that in some states.
It's for tax purposes.
Yep. I was gonna say it's money.
That's what I was thinking.
I don't
Well,
know
also-
what began it though. I mean, taxes now, but why? I don't know the answer of why.
We didn't have income tax.
Part of it too was, the tradition that the races don't blend. And, so you had to prove that you were.
I'm going to give you the whole list.
I would say children, protect children.
I think that the government is involved just to clarify who is to take care of the children,
Okay.
the parents.
That-
Why did they make you do a blood test?
They don't make you do it anymore.
Why did
It
they?
used to be to make sure you didn't have VD, I thought.
Yeah,
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, you gotta pass your Wasserman.
Sexually transmitted diseases.
That's my
So
question.
you don't want to go see this guy, okay? So
I wouldn't want to go see him.
these are the reasons that states regulate weddings, marriages.
Yeah.
First of all, establishes legal recognition of the relationship, providing rights and responsibilities. Regulates marriage to ensure compliance with laws regarding age, consent, and capacity.
Right.
provides a framework for resolving disputes related to property, custody, and support if the marriage doesn't work out, facilitates the collection of demographic data for social and economic planning, tax purposes, as April mentioned, and also making healthcare decisions, and promotes social stability by defining family structure and responsibilities. I don't know, anything else you can think of, James, since you're the attorney here? I was hoping David would be here today because he could.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He did that kind of legal work. But I think that seems like a pretty thorough list to me, and it makes sense. Okay, just like the law of Moses, right? All right, so back to what Jesus said. He was critical of divorce. He echoed the sentiments of Malachi, who said, speaking on behalf of God, "I hate divorce," says the Lord, the God of Israel. Why do you think Jesus seemed to be critical of Moses and his reasoning for letting the Israelites practice divorce?
Because it ignores the sacrament of marriage,
Okay.
the sacramental the contract.
Yeah.
What God had already said for Moses.
It looked like they were getting very cavalier about it, you know, with those lists that you have. It's like, oh, I found someone prettier, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
She really burnt that dinner last night. I just
Yeah.
can't stand it
Yeah.
anymore.
Not having
He had to
Pop-Tarts
be
again.
critical of that.
You know, I can understand if she did the women's thing of like trying to get rid of him by poisoning and things, but you just burn a meal or something.
Well, as he gets older, he can always say, oh, well, she's not as pretty as she used to be. I want a 20-year-old.
Hey, that's
She
good.
doesn't put out any more.
She's practically 25.
He's a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Think of this in the context of the other chapters that we've talked about. And, you know, Jesus is saying, this is what you say, this is what God says, or what I say.
Mm-hmm.
He's challenging people to lift themselves up to a higher level of existence, I think. What we call being your better self. And to me, I can understand it in that context. I may not, you know, in this day and age, it's hard to agree with it completely, but I understand where he was coming from to say, okay, you've heard you shouldn't kill anybody, but I'm saying you really shouldn't even get overly angry with somebody. Don't get carried away.
And you think he's really talking to the men?
Well, it would have largely been to the women. That's an excellent question. He's out teaching, you know, on the hillside. It's going to be most of the men out there probably who've been out working in the fields or fishing or whatever like that and stop for a few minutes to go listen to it.
Yeah.
The women are, you know, down carrying the water and tending the fire and making the stew.
Mm-hmm. Because the contracts that you found during that time frame, it took a lot for women.
Yeah.
You know, it had to be something like abuse.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I mean, you know, obviously that same thing kind of went into our society. I mean, we look at America, you know, before. I mean, women went through a lot to get us to where we
No, I
are
think
today.
to me, he's just saying, I think, you know, you had to have the law of Moses because you weren't what you could be.
Yeah, I can do that.
You know, you can be better than that, and so I'm
Well,
by saying
all
these
right.
things,
The
I
law-
think he's challenging us to be open to that possibility that we could do better.
But the law of Moses came out after they had been freed from slavery for so many years, and they probably have lost a lot of that knowledge, right? And
Well,
from generation to generation, they had lost the knowledge of before.
So
So Moses had to kind of reteach him. So maybe he was going in there.
Well, when I taught
Bringing
chapter
it back.
3 in this book, I talked a lot about the law of Moses and how it wasn't just given at one point in time. It was actually written over many, many centuries and developed and changed. And,
Yeah.
you know, what they had in Jesus' time was probably not what the original law of Moses looked like 500 years, 600 years before.
I like the
Building
way
it up.
the Cecil B. DeMille shows how it was done. You know, the lightning coming
Oh,
down,
yeah.
firing, writing on the tablets. It was really cool.
Okay. So would Jesus feel the same way today about our marriage laws? Would they seem lax to him?
He'd probably be pulling his hair out.
Irreconcilable differences is the legal term.
Yeah.
Maybe, he might.
I like the term worth of all persons when it comes to the people involved. I think that's more
Okay, we know what the exception
that I
was.
identified with years ago.
Any other thoughts about divorce apart from the one
And it
sin of
was,
sexual
it was
immorality?
her sexual immorality. I didn't see
Right.
either one of those. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
his.
It didn't say him.
Okay.
Her.
Let's be clear.
It didn't say she could leave him if he was
Exactly.
fooling around, right?
Mhm.
Paul,
Yeah.
what would Jesus have said when the two parties, the man and woman, say, we don't love each other?
Mhm.
We don't have any other problems. We just
Uh-oh.
Well, I don't know. You know, it'd be interesting to know, and I don't know where you'd even find this. Since marriages in those days were arranged contracts and weren't necessarily based on falling in love with somebody, they were more conveniences, bringing the families together. I'm not sure how that would fit in. I don't know at what point. I mean, we think of falling in love with somebody and then marrying them. And as my student found out, you can't just put two people together and say love each other.
Yeah.
You know, they clearly did not.
Maybe Jesus would have said, "What's love got to do with it?"
Would he have sang it? Would he have sang it?
Maybe.
What do you think, Dennis?
Are you still there?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm kind of like you, but I think he would say he'd allow a divorce if they don't love each other.
No.
Well,
He
we
didn't
had
say that. It's not in the scripture. I'll agree with that, but
we had a couple of weeks ago talking about, you know, Jesus telling people before you come before the altar, go and work out your differences and then come to the altar. And we've interpreted that to mean communion. We say before you take communion, you know, say you're sorry to the people you've offended or whatever in the last month. So I don't know if he would say something like that or not. It's a good question.
I think a lot of times people get married for lust rather than love. And once you kind of get through the shininess, it's,
Well, I wasn't here last week to talk about this.
Oh, yeah, it was
But
fun.
Jonathan mentioned, he said if Paul was here, he'd probably talk about, you know, the brain chemicals. And the chemical that causes us to be, you know, appeal or desire another person is oxytocin. That's
Yeah.
a hormone, the same hormone that has a lot to do with pregnancy and breastfeeding and things like that.
It's let
But it's
down.
also the hormone in your brain that says, when I look at you, you know, wow, I feel something. I got butterflies inside or whatever.
Oxytocin is a letdown hormone.
People with Williams syndrome, like my nephew Spencer, have an abundance of oxytocin,
No.
more than other people.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him so
And all
loving.
of those hormones, I mean, they do those things in our brain. So you aren't 100% responsible for being attracted to somebody. I mean, that
And domesticated dogs have
some
oxytocin.
of the other things
Wolves don't.
that were mentioned last week was, you know, lust for life.
And coyotes
People
don't.
we call them adrenaline junkies. They like that rush of adrenaline, so they fly off mountains in little gliders and things like that.
Right.
Lust for power is
Might have been a
linked
gift.
to testosterone, especially in males. There's actually been studies that have shown that many politicians have higher levels of testosterone, and they're you know, giving in to that kind of lust for power. So all of those, you know, all of those hormones are telling our brain at any given time. You know, anger is another one. We have a rage center in our brain. We have a place in our brain that generates anger. Jesus would not have known that in the time when he said, "Don't be angry at anybody." You can't help but be angry sometimes. So I think as a society, we have to, you know, we develop morals, ethics. We give grace to each other. We talk about giving grace. You know, there's lots of things that we can do to try to control or keep those emotions from being damaging, but we can't stop them from happening. You know, we're not biologically capable of doing that.
Yeah.
The people in Jesus' time had no clue. They thought everything was generated by their thoughts. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
So don't, you know, what I'm saying is don't take it don't be so hard on yourself if you get angry at somebody. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, those kinds of things happen.
That's what it kind of bothered me. That part of the lesson from last week was, Jesus saying it's not enough that you're abusive. Don't even go there with your anger or
Yeah.
with your lust. It's like, well,
Well-
sometimes we get angry,
Don't even think about it.
A
It's normal.
question. People who suffer from PTSD, have they done studies if they have a lack of oxytocin?
I don't know about PTSD. I'd have to go do some research on that. I have been researching some things lately. I have put together a set of slides if you guys ever want to revisit near-death experiences. Title of those slides is, what does medical science say about near-death experiences? And I've got another set of slides we can talk about sometime about what's the soul. We had a discussion about what does it mean. So there's a history of the soul, through going all the way back to the ancient Egyptians and Mesopotamians.
Is he going to get published? Are you going to
No,
do it?
no.
Oh, come on.
But I don't know everything about PTSD. I do know, we were talking last week about, what lust means and trying to come up with a definition for it. And after I thought a little bit more, I thought lust to me is like an addiction. The two words seem very compatible. And we become addicted to substances because those substances trigger the chemicals in our brain to respond. Dopamine, serotonin are a couple of them. Dorothy knows about those. And so if I abuse a drug, if I'm a patient who's had surgery and the doctor gives me OxyContin, I find out pretty quickly that, wow, that makes me feel good. That's releasing dopamine in my brain. And, so we take more and more drugs to get that dopamine release. So then you go to get help, you go to an addictionologist and they say, well, in order to get off of the medication, I can give you another medication that sort of takes the place of that. But you also need to learn to do healthy behaviors that cause your dopamine to be released. So for me, they'd probably say, go out and walk in nature. I love going out and walking in nature. But even those healthful things that stimulate the release of dopamine into the brain can never match what the OxyContin does. That's the problem with addiction. And that's why I was thinking addiction and lust is like kind of almost the same thing. It's people that can't control their desire for sex or their desire for gambling or their desire for drugs. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that was kind of what I took away from what Jonathan talked about last week. I'm off track now. So divorce in the time of Jesus, what Bolton says, Jesus gave women a voice. He even provoked them to speak what they were thinking and supported their dignity. Jesus supported the Samaritan woman at the well who had presumably been divorced by 5 husbands and was now living with a 6th man who was not her husband. Maybe she was a bad cook. I don't know.
So you are Andrew Bolton.
Maybe she was.
That's my comment.
Okay. I was gonna say.
He promised that God could fill the spiritual void in her soul and provide her with living water. And then he talks about Matthew 19, where Jesus' discourse on divorce is supposed to be followed immediately by his inviting the children to be with him. Why did he think the ordering of that was important, that marriage and children? You're shaking your
That is
head,
the
Jay.
biblical imperative to get married and have children.
That's the expectation.
Well, something imperative.
Andrew Bolton's recipe for a good marriage: choose your partner carefully. Helps if you both have the desire to work for the kingdom of God. Prepare for marriage. Talk and get premarital counseling. Be fully committed to the other person before taking the vow. I've often thought that we should not let people marry until they're at least 25. Okay, because the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, and that's the part of the brain that helps you to see what the outcomes of your choices are going to be down the road.
We were children when we got married.
How old were you?
20.
Okay, so.
I was 18, so was I.
I was 39 and it still didn't turn out well.
Remember, marriage is an expression of discipleship together before the Christian community. And what he said something that kind of made me think of Team Jesus. I don't know why. Reconcile when necessary, whatever it takes. Respect those who have chosen the calling to singleness. Remember that people like Jesus and Paul the Apostle and many others chose
that's
not to
nice.
marry. We've got about 4 minutes. We'll do our prayer thought here and then we can finish up. Loving God, help us choose wisely if called to marriage. Help us to honor our own marriages, forgiving and reconciling with each other justly and fairly. And bless those who chose singleness. And help me to respect and support the relationships of others. Grant us grace, reconciliation, and wisdom.
It's not.
And then Facebook yesterday, I found this. Pre-marriage tip, don't ask your wife when dinner will be ready while she's mowing the lawn.
Was what I told you in the car.
That's excellent.
All right.
Oh, did you get to eat any supper after that?
I won't tonight.
Oh, actually, I don't cook.
Yeah, he cooks anyway.
He cooks
She
anyway.
she did mow the lawn though.
Yeah, I was the lawnmower. No,
That was the arrangement we had. She took care of the lawn and I did the cooking.
Yep.
So it worked out.
Okay.
we have our own chores. Now there was a joke. It said women say 30,000 words a day. Men say 15,000. And this woman's telling her husband that, and he said, "What?" We have to repeat everything.
I like that. I like that.
That's true.
My son had, that's what he said in the car. What?
So I looked it up because America's been, it's been an interesting journey with divorce in America because it wasn't until 1969 that no-fault divorce became possible in America. So all of this element of you had to have some kind of fault,
Yeah.
was in America till 1969,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the men getting it more than the women. I don't know those statistics, but I've read enough cases that.
Jonathan, you've been quiet today. What's your recipe for a strong marriage?
I'm not sure I have a recipe, but as of today, Joanne and I have been married for 57 years.
Oh,
Happy anniversary.
Yay.
That's awesome.
Words for a happy marriage. Yes, dear.
I was thinking along that.
I tend to agree with Russ on that one.
But that sounds like pacifying, though. I'm sorry.
Whatever works.
Whatever works.
I have a very tender recollection of my dad sitting next to my mother's deathbed and holding her hand and saying, "Mary, you're right about everything. You've always been right about everything."
It's kind of sweet.
She probably was too.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting that the two people in the Bible that taught us the most about marriage were single, Jesus and Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul said, well, it's better to be single, but here's what you do if you get married. I thought that was an interesting
That was
comment.
always my question for my Catholic friends is who do you go to be counseled if your marriage is having problems? Do you go to a priest who's not married?
Yeah.
Or do you find somebody else who's
Yeah.
had
I
that
struggled
experience?
with that when I married your daughter.
Mm.
I went to Jennifer because, I'm like, I don't think I can do this. I don't have the skill set that all you married people has. And she said, yes, you do. So I do think that, I'm arguing with myself here, but it has helped to hear that as a single person, I know relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
and I
still
know-
manage a lot of relationships.
Yeah, and I know.
you see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, and I know how to study, and so it's like up that list that you put out there.
In your role as a mediator.
So maybe Jesus and
Yeah.
Paul are okay.
All right, well, thank you. And let's see, next week is Jane,
It's me.
chapter 10.
Yeah.